John, can you hear us? Just mute yourself, but.
There.
Hello.
Hi.
Working? Hello, everybody.
Plug, the owl. The owl, maybe I'll sit over here, leave that for Dave to do. Dave, got an email from Dave by chance?
Abraham?
Yeah.
He told me to be here.
Yeah,
I spoke to him and there's some. This is not exactly a launch. For which those things count.
Okay, the parents, like, give like the,
Okay.
yeah, not the guy who, made the call for the.
Yes, yeah, he was the director of Marshall Space Flight Center
Yeah.
and I know, I can't remember, but I know people who worked there who were highly disparaging of him. I mean, they blamed him for the Challenger failure, which basically what the article was. Yeah, and he was irresponsible, frankly. Silence. I mean, it's tragic because Marshall Space Flight Center was absolutely instrumental in the development of the Saturn rockets and the and it was on Braun's imagination, foresight, creativity, and leadership that got us to all of them. And the way I describe it is the Germans died off and the rednecks took over.
With that.
Speaking of rednecks.
I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order, our planning, kind of about the planning commission, February 26th, 2025. And we've got an agenda and minutes, let's officially get started. Welcome, looks pretty busy out there on both hills, Silver and Ellisville. Curious about what people do. And then on Wednesdays, I think earlier, don't they have time sheets to worry about? Yeah, not. There should be some, one of these days. Public comment, agenda item number 2. Before we dive into, there's Dave. Yeah. You're good, you're good. We're just getting started.
Sorry, be late.
No. Public comment prior to our agenda, of more formal agenda. At large. If not, let's go to approval of the minutes from our January 22nd meeting.
I read through them and found them adequately reflecting like what we talked about, so I would make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Very good. Is there a second out there?
Second that.
Very good, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Very good. Our fourth item is basically a continuation of the Sean's Estate proposal. And I don't know exactly who's going to do that, but I will open it up to the representatives and we'll go from there. And tell us what you would like. Do you want like a block of time to talk through or interactive or what's best for you? How do you want this to go?
So I'm gonna be relatively brief today.
Okay,
Then we're gonna introduce Dan from Acme Engineering, to talk about water,
okay,
and then Wade's gonna hear to kind of talk about process.
very good.
So I think after I speak, you've got questions to
Sure,
me.
why don't we just do?
Dan speaks, so kind of breaks into three.
Three chunks, very good, all right. Name and representative,
Right, serial number?
Yeah.
Doug Logley, you're representing the state of Wisconsin State with regard to the Patsy Marley parcel. And just a quick share. So basically, the application before you is a question to planning commission. Would you prefer that we proceed according to the approved plat for 10 single family homes on the side of the mountain?
Just for clarification, we don't really have an application before us. This is, we do have a formal application that's been submitted.
Well, I mean, right now, we're just talking about, this is a work session, right? We're not deciding on a formal
no
application,
actions.
right? Right, like, this is a work.
I think
I
that's
don't
kind
think we
of,
need to swallow about that.
I'll take that one in, so can you reserve your comment till I'm over there, so that's fine, thank you.
So, phrased slightly differently, the question before the planning commission is, do you support, or are you in favor of the Shrewsbury State's proposal to build a big building in one corner of the property as an alternative, building 10 homes across the full 25 acres of the property? That's fundamentally the question before the planning commission, subject to, so that's fundamentally the question. So last time I was up here, we did go and have a drone. We had a drone on site, and one thing came out of that drone's exercise is we realized that the building is below the treetops out there, and our renderings were not accurate. So we've since gone out there and surveyed tree heights, and basically updated the rendering, something that we think more accurately represents the height of the building. So we surveyed a bunch of trees there, and basically the building is below treetops. I think that's a lot more accurate. So that was one takeaway from the last meeting. Another takeaway was there were questions basically about water. So we've represented that we have adequate wet water to service the project, and we're not the ones qualified to explain how to run that through the state process. So what we have here is we have a representative from Acme Engineering who's much better suited than me to explain how that works. We met with Salt Lake Public Utilities, with the Acme's had discussions with PDW on water, and I'll stand back and we'll let well, before I do that, any quick questions on me before I step down? I've also got that in the digital version. I think it's better.
Are you also gonna discuss access and things like that? Is that gonna be someone later?
So yeah, no, we can talk about access too. So access, right now, there is an approved access plan for the 10 single family home sites, which involves shared access along the Summer Road. And then a parking structure right about where it says staging area here. We believe the base case for this is a minor modification of the current access proposal that the Forestry Service previously approved. The preferred access,
I have a question. Have you actually approached the Forest Service with that question?
we have not gone into detailed dialogue with them on that yet. The alternative, which we think, the town has clearly expressed preference for, we as the applicant, or we as the Shrewsbury State are also, firmly in favor of, is we can basically do a parallel driveway that would basically leave the Summer Road in its exact current condition. It would come off at the same point as the access to the ski lifts maintenance compound. It basically follows the contour along there. So that that would be an alternate permit from the Forestry Service, so we. Not, sat down and worked detailed engineering on this.
So cut a whole new road.
Got a whole new road, exactly. That way the summer road stays exactly as it is. We build a new road through there. The grades work well, there would be retaining obviously on either side of the road as you head across the seat bit before you get to. The Patsy Marley property, but it's, reviewing the grades. Definitely an achievable alternative and, we share the views of many people in the town that would be a preferred alternative.
Does Altus area support that as well?
We haven't got into details discussions with Altus Skiers. Altus Skiers is very interested in various things associated with this project. Fundamentally, this proposal would leave Altus ski areas with equivalent access to what they have today.
I'm just curious why there'd be some, what are the pros and cons? This looks like a whole new cut, some more disturbance. Almost redundant in terms of impacts. So help me to understand why that's a better.
So the advantage of this, so area of disturbance increases significantly, with more cuts, more fills. You're cutting through basically this triangle of trees between. So you're disturbing that small triangle of trees. The advantage is. The summer road gets a lot of over snow vehicle traffic, it gets a lot of ski traffic. And a solution where we basically have got multiple users on the same. Right of way corridor is less.
You're bifurcating the users.
Yeah, we're basically separating over snow users from.
Deconflicting.
The means that, people getting up to their houses at the top.
Yeah,
Less distance to carry their stuff to their snow can. Guys coming down at the end of the day skiing,
Sure,
don't have to worry about any of it.
No, I understand, it's thinking about the trade-offs of the impact.
So it's not, to my mind, that's not a high impact area. I'd rather be back this triangle of trees than the 20 acres above the summer.
Okay,
Isn't it the case that any access alternative that involves summer would involve widening it, so there will be some disturbance along the summer road, it won't just be use of the existing. Roadway section.
okay,
Yeah, so the approval for the 10 single family home sites has the summer road widened. It has a parking structure on the side that we haven't totally reviewed with the town, but the planning commission or the forestry service was on board with that, so there's disturbance one way or another. This is moving disturbance into a different right of way rather than.
okay, no, I'm just curious, I'm sure there were trade-offs there, just didn't know that.
It definitely it's a low visual impact area, I think, to put the road through there. And
Were you thinking that'd be gate controlled as far as the guests?
I think it would be appropriate to make it gate controlled. I don't think we need people wandering up there, getting lost and having to turn around and come back.
Right,
How they can use the public bathroom?
The last meeting, there was lots of discussion on that. It seemed that the town's preference was to keep the public bathroom right near the summer gate or the winter gate.
okay,
Oh, it would not be in the building, but it would be out there at the end of your access.
So last week, we proposed putting it right around where the word staging area is. And then that word was done
Where is that word?
right, just at the start of the Patsy Marley property.
Okay,
And I think what Doug's referring to is that, independent of the Shrons Estate proposal, we've been discussing the possibility of putting a trail style restroom somewhere near the Grizzly Gulch.
okay,
So
okay,
similar but different, but not, entirely the same.
all right.
Can you
Yes.
remind us how wide under the 10 lots, how wide the road will be widened to?
Yes, give me a second.
And when you're looking at that widening has already been endorsed by the Forest Service as far as
Yes.
thumbs up.
You have a bond seat.
The Fonzie, okay,
So it's 34 feet wide. The majority of it, and it is 46 feet wide at the entry. And then, there's a big roundabout at the end for turning.
That's would be the proposed,
That's the currently approved access of 10 single family home sites.
okay,
That had paved access on the uphill side of the road and over snow vehicle access on the lower side of the road. We'd have to flip those obviously, so that there would be a modification of that approval required.
okay.
Thoughts, questions for me?
Is this an updated package from the one that was,
The only thing new in here is the renderings.
okay,
So the. It's below tree.
I think it was 3 or 4, yeah.
So that,
Tree's got tall.
we got new renderings, basically, and I can share this with staff. So that's, we redid the digital rendering. There's the 10 home sites, there's the revised photo rendering. 10 home sites, and then these access sheets are the same as you previously seen.
Okay,
So I'll send those to Chris after this.
sure.
With respect to the rendering that has the condos. Is this the same building as before, but it's been scaled better to the?
Correct.
Okay, so it's the same building.
It's the same building, but we went out, we surveyed 20 trees in that area, and we realized that the rendering was inaccurate. It was overstating the height of the building, so we adjusted the rendering.
Got it, okay,
Okay,
The building itself hasn't changed, the trees haven't changed, the rendering
but the rendering did.
does, we think it's more accurate now.
okay, very good. Dave or Rob, anything else? No? Well. Yeah, we want to move on to the water next, right?
I think water's next.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Here we have Dan from Packer Engineering as our water expert.
I'm Dan Woodbury with Otway Engineering, and one of the critical aspects of this project is the water source, and in the agreement, you're aware of the 8,000 gallons per day cap from the agreement. And with this development of 29 plus a couple of extra units,
Only 34 that you're all done.
yeah, there's some low cost housing and ADA accessible. So it's total of 33, 34. That puts, you know, if you use the blanket number that the state requires of 400 gallons per day per capita day. Out of reach, but we did approach the state, in the code, Utah Administrative Code, they do allow the director to review each one of these on case by case basis. They have reviewed reductions in the past, and there's a precedent in the history for that. And it's based on the usage, but they look at it on a case by case basis. So we approached them and says, well, here are some similar developments in the Deer Valley area, Ardent one, and a couple of others in Deer Valley and Park City. We'll try to amass some more to take back to them, but they are open to that approach to reduce it. And, you know, we're looking at a number of around 250 gallons per capita day, which is significantly higher than the ones on the samples that we're using, almost twice as much. And there's no outdoor usage on these units, there's no irrigation outdoor. So that would greatly reduce it right there to begin with. So
Go ahead.
Yes.
No, that's the question.
well, I was just gonna summarize to say, I think we're just looking for like a condition or something based on the state's approval, because we, you know, they've said they have to back to us, and we'll continue going through that. So we're gathering that data now, and we'll present a formal report to the state, the Division of Drinking Water, to show that.
So how are you making sure that you're doing an apples to apples comparison? So you have these units are between 3,000 and 4,000 square feet, if I recall. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so fairly large condo units. How are you comparing that with data that you're getting up in the Park City or other area, so that you're doing a bedroom count comparison, so that you're not looking at some studio usage versus large
Exactly.
10 or.
Yeah, and so we're trying to do that on a square footage type basis. A lot of those, and a lot of those that we have data on already do have an outdoor irrigation component in it too. in the Deer Valley area, which we have done, which would, you know, release.
right?
It make our numbers look better, but that's exactly what we've got to go through with the state and show them that we're comparing apples to
And
apples.
then over what time period are you looking at? Are you looking at, because the contract or this stipulation is 8,000 gallons per day measured on a 30-day period. So essentially 240,000 gallons for the peak month. That they're
That's
entitled
what they
to.
want, but they also require the entire year storage capacity. And so we're collecting data for 26 months.
Right, but when you're comparing to the source of supply. Because one of the other things that's required under the state code is an enforceable mechanism that limits if the state grants you a reduced water use. There has to be an enforceable mechanism that the water supplier
The usage during that month.
can enforce that reduced usage. So if you come up here over the Christmas holidays and all the condos are filled up for the better part of a month using water like mad, and you exceed the 240,000 gallons under the state code, there has to be an enforceable mechanism that they can't exceed that number. And so I guess my question, or maybe that's a question for Wade, is what was that, how is that enforceable mechanism going to look like in your minds?
But, one of the items in the code is that, you know, no more than 8 fixtures per connection. You know, 8 plumbing fixtures inside of the home. So it gets back to the square footage and the usage and how is this being used? And, you know, most of the people that would be coming up to these look like they would be on a rental type basis, coming up for a ski vacation or something like that. Out skiing. But yeah, there will be some peak times for high usage,
Yeah,
you know, if they're gonna get a hot tub and
right.
or whatever.
Well, that's the other thing that, you know, in addition to the, and as I read the code, it's actually 800, not 400, but I'll let you and the state work that out. Gallons per day per connection for a residential unit. So I'll be looking forward, making sure you're doing an apples to apples comparison and not spreading it out over the year, which obviously would reduce down, you know, that kind of the average.
Yeah.
Be looking at it for the peak month of when you're going to do that, and then, you know, how is this going to be enforced legally by the water company?
And so are you putting together a table then, or like, a peer prop, your case studies, is it something that you would share with us in terms of how many examples you're looking at in the Park City area?
Yeah, we give you all that data and information.
Okay.
And then whatever we
Is
submit
it
to the
3,
state.
is it 6? I mean, do you know how many roughly type similar unit or developments you're looking at?
We've got 4 right now, we're gonna pick up a couple more.
Okay.
And you look at any of them in Alpha? Sure.
And that's what we're trying to get right now is something here in Little complicated.
Okay.
I know in the renderings, there was a mention of food and beverage of some sort, is that factored into the calculations as well? They're talking about continental breakfast or that would take a significant amount of water, I think, too.
Yeah,
And I think that will come out in the number of connections and facilities.
Separate from the units.
yeah, because there'll be kitchen facilities, spa, you know, hot tubs, if there's planning a pool or just hot tubs.
Just hot.
This
This way, I understand, no pools on it, but yeah.
So. Because that, as Marion mentioned, that adds a significant water use to
That does,
the project.
Timeline as far as the backup, you know, compiling your total number of examples, then going back to the state, you have a time frame of that?
I think in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're gonna go back to the state on that.
Okay.
And then what is, if you don't mind, what is the state process for reviewing the data you provide and making the determination? Issuing approval, whatever that final step is.
I guess that would depend on if we need to go back a couple of iterations with that back and forth, working through that, but they would issue a letter of approval and then we could submit that to you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Others,
What is Salt Lake City water? What is their involvement in all this? He's talking about the state.
Now, the state sets the drinking water requirements. And Salt Lake City Public Utilities involvement is they're the ones that have the contract for the source of supply. And so they're basically the bucket of water. And the state will determine how fast you can drain or not drain that bucket essentially.
The state's basically got 3 branches: Division of Drinking Water, Division of Water Resources, and Division of Water Rights. And they'll all look at that, make sure the rights are there, like water resources are there, and the drinking water requirements are met.
Good.
Thank you.
Dave or anything else?
I just asked for clarification. How does the fixtures relate to the number of units or these connections? You said 8 fixtures per connection. Can you
Well,
explain it?
yeah, the state will boil it down. We've got to do a calculation for what they call an ERC, equivalent residential connection,
Okay.
is what that's based on. So, back of the napkin, we're talking right now 33 ERCs, equivalent residential connections. And so if you have a restaurant, for example, depending on how big that restaurant is, how many tables are served, or how big the kitchen is, that would equate to maybe more than just one ERC. It might be 3 or 4 ERCs, so you equate it to that.
Well, it also ties to the number of bedrooms, because if you have, for example,
Yeah.
a large unit that has 4, maybe 5 bedrooms and a, certain amount of restrooms and a kitchen and that, it's the people in those bedrooms that are using those water fixtures. So the more bedrooms you have, the more flushes you get, the more showers you have, the more meals that are being, or larger meals that are being prepared. Okay, so it ties back to, the bedrooms, because they're the ones that are driving the use through those fixture units.
Thank you, good. Great, it's a process.
Honorable Chair, Lee Budge and Planning Commissioner, thanks so much for your time. And thank you, Dan, for giving us that explanation. That's helpful. And since our last meeting, we've had an additional meeting with Salt Lake Public Utilities and with representatives of the town. And presented the proposal to have these details handled by our expert, as opposed to us trying to communicate what we understand to be those details. And so we look forward to Dan providing that report. Now that we're getting that, we'll be able to read that. So let me just kind of walk a little bit through in terms of process. Mr. Niemeyer first indicated, well, there's not an application pending. Since our last meeting, we did turn in an application. Mr. Niemeyer may be getting to is this, and I just want to put this on the table because what we've tried to do since we started this process is play every card on the table face up. Okay. And so what we have here is this. Under the 2014 stipulation, there's a requirement that we not come and seek a change to the 10 homes without the consent of Salt Lake City and the town. And when I say Salt Lake City, Public Utilities. In October, we got an email from Salt Lake City Public Utilities lawyer saying that they're fine with us proceeding with this process, and we shared that the town has that. And the town, obviously, this is a discussion among the willing. So whether it's an application or not is a detail that can be. We have an application, but our application could be just as easily terminated by town saying we're no longer consenting to the processing of a rezone. So that's why the application is pending. But we recognize that unlike, for instance, with a land use application, and that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about a process, a land use application, a property owner has certain rights. We're not to that category yet. And so let me just kind of speak in relative. I'm going to fly at 30,000 feet, and I'm going to jump down to 5,000 feet, and then go back up to 30,000. At 30,000 feet, what we want from this body is a rezone recommendation. You can't approve a rezone, you can recommend to the council. And you can also recommend against a rezone as well. Or you could recommend with conditions or comments. That's all we want from this body. And we would hope that the items that are of importance in connection with a rezone would be communicated in that recommendation, either up or down to the council. Because the body we have to work on a new deal with is the council. And what that deal would look like is a rezone. And then because we have that amendment to the development agreement would look like. And those terms are the terms we don't negotiate with this body, but we negotiate with them. But because you all are in charge of planning items. And because if we were to get to a point where a rezone were granted. And a new development agreement were amended, the development agreement were amended. To allow the project we've been, again, cards face up on the table, showing you. Then that development agreement would outline the requirements in order to pursue for that project. Then, in order to pursue the project, we're back to this group. And that, now I'm gonna fly down to 5,000, because what we have to do with this group. Is we have to bring a land use application in that instance, so I'm looking into the future. And that land use application would actually be two. Initially, it would be a conditional use permit. Because we are not seeking, after we kind of had this aha moment last year. Over on Summer Road with staff. We have been guided by this principle, which is if Patsy Marley is going to turn into a condominium building from 10 units. They're gonna do so without amending the code. All that we're gonna seek is, the discretionary item that we're seeking is to do the rezone. And under the code that exists already in the town, the condominium building. Would be a process as a CUP, well, you're the body that we have to bring a conditional use permit to. And in that instance. We would want to show not only all the granular details about the building. We want to show the fixture count, we want to show everything else to show how we're complying with. The approval that Operators are going to obtain for us, we're gonna want to show how we've handled all the various details, how we're mitigating. Various detrimental impacts that would be created by our project. We'd also want to show how we've accounted for ski lift rights, because ski lifts has rights on our property. They have rights to ski over our property, so for instance, when we talk about the driveway coming in, we have to accommodate ski lifts. And so those are details that we're not. We're identifying for all of you are on our radar, and we understand would require. Detail to be proposed and worked out with this body in a conditional use permit process. But we haven't, for instance, gone and engineered the whole building. What we've done is we've gone and done a concept so we can get your minds around the rezone concept. So you can understand the direction we would be headed if a rezone were to be approved by the town council. The next application we would file, which would probably be 2 or 3 months after the CUP, but probably while the CUP was pending, is the condo plat itself. Because we have to get enough feedback from this body as to how we're proposing the final details of the building. How we're proposing to utilize the square footage, how we're proposing to have the back of house interface with that. You know, the hallways and lobbies and so forth, and how the arrival will work in life. And then the condo plat, and get your input and comments on the condo plat. And so, in that instance, that whether we have an application pending really matters a lot. And so that is how we're proposing that this would go. We would look from the first instance, flying back up to higher elevation, to just get overview comments about, you know, I could envision a recommendation being something like this. Planning Commission recommends approval, but only upon these conditions. 1, satisfactory compliance with requirements under Salt Lake City settlement. Satisfactory requirements relative to compliance with the state of Utah drinking water requirements. Satisfactory commitment being proposed for access being pursued with the Forest Service, with the town, in our mind, and in our discussions, the town would be the better applicant there. We'd be a co-applicant, but it would only make sense. The Forest Service is to be more interested in something that benefits the town. And if the town is like, nah, we don't want to get involved in that, we're fine going the other way. We just see more potential over the snow conflicts during a very important part of the season here. And so for that reason, we're willing to commit to explore that other item.
Need to add wetlands to your list.
Nice, sorry.
Add wetlands to your list there.
Yes, and then, yeah, bring that condition upon the applicant bringing a conditional use permit that shows it is complying with the setbacks and avoiding unlawful impacts on wetlands. So all of that would be the types of things that could be in that recommendation, or you could do the reverse and do a negative. And in the end, it's a political question, and you know, the town could wake up tomorrow and say, we're done, we don't want to talk about this anymore. Because under the 2014 stipulation, they could withdraw it. And because a rezone is completely discretionary, the law, we're just here to have this discussion, cards up, because we think cards up will help you understand the benefits that are to be obtained mutually for everybody. But admittedly, if we do the deal and we have a settlement agreement and we do get the rezone, then we come from a different standpoint where we make 2 formal land use applications and we want them to be processed in accordance with that law that would apply because of the rezone. So one of the things we want to just put out there is, you know, we think there's sometimes been a hope that the size will change because the water will somehow compel a different result. And we think that the size is gonna stay the way it is, and the reason is because we've been very careful to show that we're meeting the ordinance that we're proposing, so in terms of height. We're meeting the setbacks, including setbacks in wet areas. We've got a jurisdictional determination, meaning a wetland analysis. We also have done the analysis relative to water, and we're gonna have that be confirmed through the Aqua path that Dan Woodbury just indicated. And then the other item that is important is that we want to communicate that now is the time. I mean, I think we've had a lot of different things that we've poked around over the last 10 years since it was approved. You know, it's now been 10 years and 10 days or 12 days. 11 years and 12 days. Thank you. Yeah, because it was on the 14th. That's why it was on Valentine's Day. At any rate. But now we're to the point where it's going to happen, you know, the project's gonna happen in those intervening 11 years. We did some pipeline work. So the line is already run from the mine all the way up to the top of the project. And then there was a loop line that was purchased by the town for its jockey tank. But at any rate, now is the time to move forward. And so what we would like to get from this body is those types of things that you think should be included in a recommendation. Because what we would then envision is we're gonna be sitting down with the town and its legislative body, its elected officials, staff and elected officials to hammer out the terms of what that agreement would look like. And then if that process is successful and Salt Lake City signs off, and you know, we've had enough meetings with Salt Lake City to feel like we're not outside of the lane of what's possible. We've had many discussions with them. They're obviously gonna wait, but they see a conservation opportunity here, and that's a big key. So of this whole opportunity is that there's a conservation opportunity from the Summer Road up that would be compelling and provide benefit to the public. And so what we want is a recommendation, one way or the other. We're happy if the application question remains, well, we can have that put in the packet so everyone can understand what that looks like. But our intent is to move forward to seek a recommendation from this body because we need to be before council so we can negotiate those details. And just rest assured, no one is asking this body to make a recommendation on a project. We've told you what we're gonna apply for if we get the rezone, so that you could be forecasting for us now items that would be of importance, so that they could be included and considered as part of the development agreement. But the actual project itself will receive its real approval once the conditional use permit is approved and the common plat is approved. So I just wanted to provide that because sometimes when we provide so much information in the context of a discussion about a rezone, we kind of think, oh, well, we have to have everything worked out now. No, there's gonna be a class of things that we're gonna have to put in the bucket of, they're gonna require refinement. They need to be refined when the application is brought back to this body. Mr. Niemeyer. Fine,
Okay,
but you know,
thanks.
I've been the director and all these other things, so.
That's right. Well, been a lot of other things too that
Yeah,
don't even,
but that's.
don't even resolve Jeff, so.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
Thank you.
So in my mind, there's been a lot of dialogue,
Mhm.
but it's been, at least from my perspective, on a planning commission member, relatively confined to a small group of people.
Yeah,
Where in this series of processes would you envision would be a good opportunity to engage the town as a whole, as some sort of public meeting, so that both the planning commission and the town council could have a sense of the town's opinion on this?
that's an excellent question. My sense would be, we would schedule it for the March meeting, and have a notice as a public hearing. And just let's have the public, we'll make a presentation to the body summarizing everything that we've given. We won't assume that everyone sitting in the room will have listened to the prior tapes or prior minutes or read the prior minutes or listened to the prior videos. So we would come forward, make a presentation on the whole opportunity as we see it. And then we'd have a slide explaining the process so that if a recommendation were made up or down to the council, it doesn't assure the project. What it does is it means that the council, as they're weighing whether or not to allow the rezone, which is needed for the project, they'll have the benefit of this body thinking. So next March, in March.
Jeff, it's funny, I was thinking the same thing, so in terms of some way to get community input, I think. My guess is a lot of the community is water here, water there, but it's a visual. It's having this big change. I don't know if you want to talk back to that rendering, but it's something very different and somewhat large. And I think it's, we incumbent upon us as a community to have people see what that's gonna look like.
Yes,
At
right.
some point, very much so.
Yeah.
So I was even, before Jeff brought this up, I was thinking, is this a standalone community meeting? Lady of the Snows or something like that, that's, because
Workshop.
I'm just not a big fan of expecting people to come here. No matter how it's noticed or what the agenda is like. I just don't think we're gonna get the engagement that I think this warrants, in my opinion.
What about an open house?
That's what I mean,
Like,
yeah,
like
open
we've seen
house.
done in other.
Right, I was thinking like community open house sort of thing. I know. We don't wanna, we don't wanna. Get bogged down in a time, a lot of graphics, a lot of effort on that, but just, this is a big deal physically. And I just think it's fair to make sure we represent the town.
Yes,
I don't know. What the town thinks. I mean, I'll be honest about that, so I think it's incumbent upon us to try to elicit that.
okay, I think that's a very good
Is it?
suggestion.
Or maybe the snows.
In a more informal setting.
Yeah,
Yes.
whether it's some boards and some easels and, we're all in it together.
Sticky notes.
Yeah,
I've seen the sticky notes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah, you get a
It's
lot.
something,
Hey, there's sometimes an idea that's,
Yeah.
you need to go through all of them to know whether there's something.
but I think I think it's important to, the theme of that, in my opinion, would be, it's about the trade-offs,
Mhm.
not about this per se. But you get this or you get that. So I think that would be, in my opinion, a recommendation for a theme, overarching theme to a community event.
Okay.
But anybody else want to weigh on that?
I would concur with that open house idea.
Great.
Is the video better? Is the video better? I don't know that.
And so if it's all right, we'll work on the logistics of that.
Yeah.
And coordinate with your staff on that and make sure that you're all apprised and invited.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Don't want you to think we're doing that down a silo,
No.
Holly.
Sorry, when you talk about process, can you address for the council where the revised development, I assume that there would be a separate development agreement that would go with the rezone. And
Yeah.
then there's also the settlement / development agreement, there's kind of like two development. Or,
So that's right, so that, yeah. So the development agreement would be, so the development agreement done on February 14, 2014 was an administrative development agreement. What that means is it did not seek for a variation from the zoning. We would do the same here, but the rezone itself would be legislative, which is the choice to, if the council were to choose to change the zoning district. And so the thought would be that it would be reasonable, given the discussions and the input we've gotten thus far, even though it's not the whole public, but what we've got so far, that they have to be coupled together. So you'd have the development agreement conditions. One is that the conservation easement be granted within the time period agreed to, that the access be pursued to provide that benefit that we think the town is likely going to conclude is important, that we're not trying to manage over the snow with rubber tire access and a host of other items. And so that would be all part of what would get negotiated. I don't imagine that the, in fact, I wouldn't even recommend it to my client. The rezone would not happen but for a development agreement also being done with council. And so we have to work with council on that. And that's why I'm saying, as we go to propose a draft to the council, those kinds of items that you all put into your recommendation are the types of things we'll want to make sure and being included in that agreement. And then second of all, there'll be a requirement that we get the stipulation amended to which all of our parties relative to how the water is to be used, and that requires Salt Lake's participation. And Polly, I don't know if I addressed your question well.
Yeah, you did,
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that it was understood. That it's not just a blanket rezone.
Nope, it's not, and it's a rezone with a condition. And sorry, looks like I need to get a glass of water here in a minute, but we were putting in the development agreement that this zone only makes sense if each of those conditions is met.
That drink's gonna come out of your 800.
I know. I should have, I have one in my truck, I should have brought it up.
Hey, there's one right there.
Thanks. Got it.
Not that anybody's keeping score.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always get
So yeah, I'll use that this time.
Right.
Got back into the mode.
Wait, can you remind us who, maybe, I think you mentioned it last time, who would be the holder of the conservation easements?
Yeah, so. Thanks. We would, the discussion we have so far is we would pick a qualified donee acceptable to all three parties. We've had some very informal discussions with Friends of Alpha, given that they're very comfortable and adapt, they're qualified donee under the IRS rules, not that we're seeking a donation, but we just want someone who's competent in administering a conservation easement. And then furthermore, they have interest up here and they expressed informally interest in doing this. And in fact, I think they've identified for us benefits that would be obtained for the community if they were to do that. And then the other thing I wanted to do, and I did not present, and I wanted to respond to Jeff's question, and that is there will be a mutual water company formed. That would be the one who would be obligated to interface to enforce the requirements relative to the water supply.
Right, yeah, they would have the power, but there still needs to be a legal mechanism and which they can act on.
That's right. So that would be it there.
Okay, all right, good.
I got a question, we haven't talked about the lift company at all. And
Yes.
what impacts they would, run into. And, so I mean, we're all up here because of the lift company, sorry, that's my view. So I'd like to hear, whether or not they're comfortable with the proposals as they stand.
Yeah. I'll let Mike speak for himself. I'm not gonna speak for Mike, but I'll tell you what we're doing in our mind. We know that we have to speak to them. We know that we have to work with them. In my view, we need to coordinate with them relative to what we want to go and propose relative to the Forest Service, because we're not gonna be interfering with their special use permit, but we're gonna be going over an area that's subject to their special use permit. Relative to that second access. And then I think what we have to do is just make sure we take into account how their skiers are gonna continue to use the site. Because there is they have a deeded interest. When the property was conveyed in, I think 1999, there were some reservations that ski lifts retained, and one of the reservations is the right to ski over the site. And the other one is to be able to use a portion of the site for their uphill, their track, for their open snow equipment. So those are details that we're happy to acknowledge at the point of the development agreement, but I would expect that when we come and bring forward a CUP application, you'd want to see every detail about how we worked out something with them be reflected in that application.
I'd like, maybe we bring that up at another meeting as far as formally hear from CLS, what they're in bullet format, here, concern, response, something like that. Mark, that way you don't have to, you guys have some time to
Yeah.
be very clear, item 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And response sort of thing.
So Commissioner, I hope that.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
The rezone ask is for FM 20,
Yeah, that's right.
and then the developable acreage.
About 6 acres. Portion of which will be put into conservation easement, that's on the other side.
Fall into the category of developable.
So I think it's about 2.5 acres of developable acres,
Okay.
the lot size is 6 acres.
I was referring to losses, and so if you look at our application, you'll see that we have a funny shaped. Parcel, and the reason it goes up is because we're following that principle of we're not seeking exceptions.
Okay.
So
It's just defined as a conservation,
that's right.
Piece of it.
That's right.
okay. And then just maybe Polly fact check me, but don't the FM zones, actually building height comes back to this
Yes.
body, so.
Yeah.
That's the ask. And that's a decision, not a recommendation from this group.
John,
That's how that
Yeah,
reads.
that's my recollection.
That's right. So we didn't seek that approval as part of the CUP, sir.
Okay.
But we're gonna put in the DA what we're forecasting and expecting.
No further questions?
I think we've got steps forward,
Thank you.
at least. I think. Get some next couple of months anyway.
Okay, thank you.
In staff, anything?
No.
I think the idea of a open house before the end of the ski season makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
In my mind, and I think one of the benefits to you, I know it's probably like, oh geez, is. We don't want you to go through all these other steps and then things come unglued at the 11th hour with, pitchforks and
Yeah.
torches and things like that. Let's get that out now.
It's a way to make sure we lessen anxiety because people are given information.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, all right, so I hope
Thank
you
you.
don't see that as a burden.
No, I appreciate it.
Opportunity, yeah.
Can you just recap what the steps are for us? I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just trying to understand how all this is.
So in our mind, and again, this is subject to them because they're in charge. Is we look for in March, an open house. We would like to get on the agenda in March as well. But we'll have to see how the timing of the open house and the agenda works. And then we would like to get this body to be in a position to make a recommendation to the council with all their comments. And then for the council to take those comments and to weigh those together with the draft of the development agreement. And then in the development agreement outlines how the process would be followed if the rezone were approved for an application. So you wanna know my best world, then I'm back here in the summer with my CUP. That's my, I'm just to communicate clearly, and so in that case, I'm bringing my CUP back to this body, we would have to decide.
And when that CUP comes back, that would include whatever we've agreed with this year.
Yeah, we have to put in there the details, like for instance, how you're gonna get over our site.
So you've got the Forest Service, lifts and water
That's right.
as pretty, and then get the community effort, wetlands.
Yep.
Sort of
All on that side, but we're not, and I hope you understand why we're doing it this way. One is because we have to get the permission to file a CUP.
Sure.
In order to get the permission to file a CUP, we have to have the rezone, but we also have to persuade the town that there's a policy reason worthy enough to entitle or to pursue the rezone. And then, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, go ahead and finish your thought.
And then the thought there too is that to detail in that development agreement, the conservation opportunity. And just so everyone knows, the way we envision this happening is that those conservation benefits get transferred to the qualified domain. As soon as we're able to pull that permit, because we know that we've got that part approved. So that's the way we would pursue that. That helps.
So my question, I guess, Polly, is. how is it that we initiate the step to make a recommendation to the council? If, do we say we have this request from a developer?
So they submitted an application for a rezone. But it was, I can't remember the date, but within the
10
last
days ago.
10 days ago, just very recently. So,
Oh, I thought you meant our conversation. We
yeah,
did it over 2 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago.
yeah.
But
within the
we had a
last-
conversation about the things we have to navigate.
Right, so to make sure that it's a complete application, that's kind of the first step. But once we have a complete application, then the next steps would be to go to the planning commission.
And then we then make our
Your
recommendation with conditions to,
Either you recommend for, as Wade mentioned before, against, or for against with conditions.
okay,
So.
but it's that application that's the trigger to come to this body.
So it would be possible, I mean, right, we have to figure out the timing, especially with the open house. And actually, I was curious about the timing. Do you think you'll have your report from Aqua by the open house?
That's what I was gonna do too. That's-
Maybe, but
Probably
Well,
not the
at least-
state answer.
we'll at least explain how that works either way. But I will tell you this, we'll want to know that we don't have any open issues with the application before we leave this month of February. So I'll work with Polly and Sean on that.
Okay.
Just to
Yeah.
make sure we're clear on that.
In 2 days?
Yeah, which it's not hard, because we just means the three of us have to get on a call with one other person.
Yeah.
We'll be okay.
Okay,
So, thank you.
okay,
This is the kind of input we needed.
okay,
And the intention is just to glean, if you will, things that are of importance to the community so that we can make sure we're fashioning an agreement that will be working.
okay, good. No, thanks for your time, everybody's time today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Mayor, are you a pilot? No. Nope. No. Why do you think I might crash into the mountain?
Just hold on, you're 30,000 versus 5.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
all
So,
right.
hey, John, you know, a town meeting for the people in town. We've got time pressure. I mean, we gotta get the notice out, get people knowing that it's happening. We may have to even consider moving our next meeting back a week. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's 2 weeks enough time to get the word out, to get enough people in the town, you know, to come to this open house.
Well, I
That's the
think
question.
if the open house before the end of March,
Yeah.
then we could do it. I mean, I think I would set aside the schedule for these meetings temporarily for that.
Yeah.
Get that.
I'm thinking of that too, it's gonna be tight, end of March is gonna be tight, it's ready. Ideally, you get your response, the response from the state, in terms of water would happen by the 26th of March, or whatever our date is. 24th, whatever that is,
Aqua may be way better than.
yeah,
Well, I'd like to, let's work on the open house,
Yeah.
better logistics there, and then we'll report it to your staff and they
Okay.
can
okay.
figure out that timing. But
Am
I
I-
agree that open
Yeah, am
house.
I hearing that maybe the open house is the same as, it takes the place of our meeting, but you probably want a meeting, so.
Let's see what the logistics is like on the open
Yeah,
house.
yeah, and then you guys will be responsible for presentations and materials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really, it's
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, so Steelers made a good point about the time. We
Yeah,
can do it
but I
after.
think,
Sorry.
4 weeks would be adequate.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think it's, I'm not, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Mike made a good point about the timing of it. You know, you don't want to do it while people are still out skiing, so we need to pick.
Well, yeah, it's gotta
So
be.
if you think the evening, like, I mean, what I've done in other ski communities with John, we've done it at like 6 or 7.
I would do 5 to 7, 5 to 7.
Yeah.
4 to 6, something like that.
Right,
Just don't pick a snow day.
Well,
yeah.
it's all about the hors d'oeuvres provided too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The turkey chili.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sure. I know, because I know what community you're in.
Champagne and turkey chili.
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, if you
Yeah,
have an
yeah,
open
Mike.
house
is there a period of time the public can make comment or something? How does that work?
I think we would do my vision would be, obviously a sign in. I think, yeah, comment form, hopefully there's a lot of conversations around some of the displays they would be providing. And, I don't, it's not, we have to be really careful, in my opinion, this is not a voting, it's not a voting thing, like who's gonna show up and who's gonna be the loudest. That's not what this is about. And we need to make that really clear, as we both notice it and co-host it or whatever we want to phrase that. So it's going to be really to gauge the temperature, Mike, I'm being not very concise here.
It's more information.
It's very much informational. I believe in eyes wide open before we continue to go forward.
Yeah, what we usually bring is about 3 or 4 big poster boards, they're about this big. And we'll have like Zach standing at one, me at another, and a couple representatives, we'll make an initial presentation and then we'll have people mill around, because a lot of times people feel more comfortable asking questions just in a one-on-one rather than having to raise their hand in front of everyone in attendance.
Right.
And then people can mill around, and then to Jeff's point, we can maybe even say, hey, if you have ideas, here's some post-its and stick them on the boards,
Yeah.
to that. So that way we aggregate a bunch of different comments, and we're not just getting those, because there's a type of people that just are, I'll come up here and let you know, and then there are others who have just as good ideas, but they want to do it in a more quiet way.
But it's really, at the end of the day, Mike, it's really about informing. And make sure people are, again, eyes wide open, to be fair to everybody over the next several months.
Well, I think it's more than informing, I think it's 2 ways. That is, we're getting input. from-
Oh, sure, we're gonna get input, but it's really important everybody's aware. So.
You know, go out and find all your tires with their face tape, which I've seen.
Oh, yeah, I've been, I've got all sorts of stuff, so anyway. Good, let's close that agenda item, and again, thanks everybody for the good discussions. Is this your turn?
You don't bring a bottle of water to make you whole.
So we're going to do. The training. Okay.
Molly, well, let's get set up. I'd like to ask you if there's a way to do this, the recurrent training on EMA more unofficially. That is, instead of having all of us here and could we do it online at our
Yeah, so this was asked, I mean, I
That was
think,
my idea,
I prefer actually the in-person.
That's possible.
Yeah, my sense was that there's value in public being able to see the public body go through the training and ask the questions, and there's value to you all being around the table together. But we did discuss that. Polly suggested that, and I said, wow, it's in the chair of lives.
Okay.
so. So you are required to have annual Open Public Meeting Act training. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Put the screen down this way.
Oh.
Thank you.
And let me just say, and at the very end, I have a link to the state auditor, so if you wanna see if you were actually paying attention, you can do that. There are questions in like 5 minutes, it's very satisfying. I've yet to get a question wrong, so, and I think you will be in the same boat. So if you need a certificate, also sometimes people need a certificate for other boards or whatever, you can get a certificate from the auditor. So, the purpose of the act is to make your decisions in the public, right? And the example I like to give also is when we look at our state legislature, which is in session right now, you can go down, listen to what they're saying on the floor, but unless it's a committee meeting, you can't talk, you can't speak. So the idea behind the Open Public Meeting Act is that the public's business is done in the public. And that there aren't behind the, and maybe using the state legislature
I
is
was
not
gonna
the
say,
best
that's the wrong
example.
example.
That is the wrong example, especially this year, in particular, but it's, yeah, maybe that's not the right example. But the idea behind it is that the public's business occurs in the public. And I give the example sometimes, years ago, my husband and I went to a local meeting because a neighbor was gonna do something. And my husband didn't even wanna go because he's like, well, they've already made their decision. They decided this before they even got here. And I said, no, that's not how it's supposed to, I mean, I can't say, that would be corrupt. How it's supposed to happen is the conversations, the hard questions are discussed in the public, so the public can hear the different viewpoints. And that it's not just a handshake deal behind closed doors. So, that's the most important thing. And it applies in Utah to any local administrative advisory executive or legislative body. 2 or more people spends money and has authority to make those decisions. I think especially with the planning commission, there isn't much reason for you guys to ever be discussing things. Sometimes you can have one-on-one conversations, right? That is permitted under the code, it's not a forum, we'll get to that. But where legislative decisions are being made, there's a little bit more explaining points of view. Most of what you do is administrative, it really should be happening in this room that gets recorded, so.
That's not a very good picture of John.
So.
Receiving it.
So what is a meeting? When does it have to be recorded? It's a quorum, which for you is 3. It's not chance meetings. If you guys all are doing a ski day and everyone happens to get, I mean, you guys don't have, we don't have, you could have 4 on the left, right?
Six.
Sunnyside? Well, I haven't been on Sunnyside, I haven't been on Sunnyside for a long time. Okay, so if you all get on Sunnyside, it's still, as long as you don't talk about planning commission business, it's not a meeting. And having a person, the 6th person there wouldn't count, right?
Poor person.
So the other thing I like to talk about is, you know, being careful not to have meetings through text messaging. I don't think any of you snap, I don't think that would be happening, but WhatsApp, right, like by having email, right, like where it's like, what do you think about this? That, I mean, I think you're pretty well trained to know that that's not allowable. But it's just that idea of a meeting outside of the meeting, whether it be through a different medium, right?
Oh, sorry, what about us, the staff?
You could, so one-on-one to staff is good, and that's a good way to, especially with, to give feedback, is to talk to staff. Staff can convene all your things and then include them in the packet, or helps them address questions that you all have in preparation for a meeting.
Okay.
So Chris or Molly maybe would solicit that from you. Maybe they send it, a lot of times maybe you'll see that we send out emails blind copy, so that you don't get that reply all instinct, and then all of a sudden you're creating this meeting. But send it out to everyone, what are your main concerns about, you know, what do you wanna hear about at the next meeting concerning this application? So we can make sure that we're prepared for it. You can definitely, that's a great question.
Okay, and the other question that I think we always bring up at these trainings is, social functions when. Like gather for a dinner or something like that, that's not, how's that not, I forget how we don't make that a meeting.
So it's not a meeting because you're not gonna be talking about, you can't talk about town business.
Okay,
So you can talk about the weather, you can talk about the great powder, you can talk about your injuries, but don't talk about them. So, and that's fine, and sometimes,
Look at us and, go, wait a minute.
and sometimes we will even notice it, just because we don't want that, you know, perception,
We're on the side.
but the public's not invited. It's like, okay, we're gonna do a ski day with the planning commission, no, it's just fun, no work, no
Okay.
business will be happening.
Okay.
So great questions, thank you for okay. So we talk about,
Okay, there we go.
yeah, and I love it, I need to update this. Conference call, I mean, that's so like 2019, right? But same idea.
February
It's a
24th.
great cartoon though.
Yeah, the cartoons are pretty good. So I also like to just point out, this doesn't have to do with the Open Public Meetings Act, but just a reminder about the Government Records Act that you're also subject to. So that is why you all have a email address for Alta, so that all your town business happens with that email. Because you don't want your private email to be discoverable to someone who says, I wanna see all the communication that David's had with Maren. Like, someone could ask that is legit, all the written communication. So if the town has it, then we'd have to ask you for it. But if we all have it in your town email, then we can, it's very easy for us to control it and make sure that we're providing it and not go into private emails. And it's not that all of your email is, it's just substantive things having to do with town business. So, all this is kind of what we've already talked about. And there's no law the law specifically says you are allowed to talk to each other, you are allowed to communicate with each other. It's just that kind of one-on-one, so when you have a forum with you guys, you have 5, you can have 2 people talking. But as soon as you get 3 talking about town business, that's off limits. And then I just like to go over some of the other kind of more basic stuff, just so that you understand, why do we always have the meetings here, right? You have to have your regularly scheduled meeting at a regularly scheduled place. You can move it if there's an emergency. If there's a site visit, you don't necessarily have to come back here. My practice or my recommendation is to have a short meeting after a site visit, because then you can kind of summarize what happens at the site visit. And there's public notice for it, yeah, keep going. Okay, so, and I was gonna say also having to do with the meetings that, I should go back one. That there's recorded, so all of our meetings are recorded, there are minutes for all of our meetings. Also, I should make the distinction that there's a regularly scheduled meeting, we publish what that schedule is, but then you can have a special meeting. Whether you move the regular meeting or you just say, we need to have 2 meetings in April. That's allowable, it's just that we have notification for 24 hours, I think that's a later one. Okay, go ahead. Electronic meetings, of course, is a big thing now. And we have adopted a resolution, we always have to have an anchor site, so we have to have a staff member here, but under our resolution, I don't think any of you have to be there. We talk about closed meetings, that doesn't come up very often for planning commission, but the state is very clear for what reasons things can be closed. And really, very rarely would a planning commission close a meeting. Okay, these were the things I was thinking of that, so we always have to get our agenda together at least 24 hours before. Town of Alta, I have to say, I represent 4 towns, and you guys are the best, your staff is very militant. Let's get get, yeah. But make sure that you have the materials as early as possible. So that you're getting the materials, they post those materials. The law only says that the agenda has to be posted, so if a piece of information comes in after the fact, you can still consider it as long as it's available for the meeting. But the rule is just that your agenda is noticed 24 hours. So if something new comes up the night before, it's amazing how often it happens. We have to just say, sorry, we can't talk about it.
But you're saying just the agenda, not necessarily a packet.
Correct.
Huh.
That's what state code says, but everyone likes to have the
Everybody does
packet,
the packets, yeah, seems
Yeah.
like, yeah.
likes to have it at the same time. But sometimes you'll see, well, anyway, yeah. So, and then we have, there are other certain noticing requirements for land use applications, subdivisions, you know, that you just went through. Those type of things often are 10 days prior. So, that's the only other, so sometimes things can't go on unless we get the 10 days notice. And just so you know, it is both on the Utah Public Notice website and the town website. I assume by now you guys all have signed up for, it's a nice idea to sign up for the Public Notice website, for your commission as well as anything else that you're interested in. It's not too much spam, you know, like. But it's always good to see what's being posted, what the public gets, so. Okay, any other questions about that? And here are just some of the other checklist items that staff is making sure. But just so that you know that, you know, the public is being noticed of all of your meetings, what's on the agenda, what's gonna be discussed. And it's not just here, it's not just on our website and on the public notice, it's posted here too.
Here in the town office.
Yeah, so people can see it. And then the one question that comes up quite a bit too is, well, what happens if we talk about something that's not on the agenda? It is permissible, especially like people bring up something during public comment, there might be some back and forth. You just can't make a decision at the meeting, but the right practice, so that the public knows what you're talking about, is to really restrict what you're talking about to what's on the agenda. So it's a lot of times it's like, let's talk about that next month when we can prepare something. Okay. And then this is just what we talked about, and just that distinction of you don't have to accept public comment, like just, I mean, you always have that. Interestingly, it's not mandated by state law that you have that portion at the beginning of the meeting for public comment, but that is the practice throughout the state, and it's a good, right? That's where the public can talk to you. They of course can submit emails to you or whatever, but if you're talking about something, it's up to the commission if you want to allow the public to make any comments or not, except for public hearings.
Question along those lines, we don't have a lot of that, but we might in the next couple of months. Is that an arbitrary decision we would make or I would make or whatever, as far as you must be, state your zip code, like you must be, have a physical connection to the town of Alta? Park City, once you just say your zip code, before you can even speak.
Oh,
To make sure you're mentioned at Park City, by way of example.
right.
So I didn't know.
So that would be, yes, I think that is just, well, I shouldn't say that. I think anyone can, and if you open it up for public comment, you can't say,
You can't talk, yeah.
you can't tell people you can't talk if you don't live there. I wouldn't support that.
Maybe they don't say you can't talk, but I think.
They just wanna know
Maybe-
where
maybe
you're
that's
coming from.
Yeah,
And living in a Park City address that is not in Park City Municipal,
Right.
they wanna know who just lives in the basin and who lives in Park City, is my guess.
no, yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
But for us, yeah, you could ask people to say, there often the people even will say, please state your neighborhood, your address and your name, right, for the record. Because you do, I mean, that is helpful. Alta, I think, is a little different in that I think a lot of people feel ownership for Alta, even when they don't live here, right?
Right.
It's such a iconic place that a lot of people have real connection to the place, to
Sure.
this place.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so that would, you could do that, and I think it is a board, like, so if there's a public hearing, which like a rezone requires a public hearing, then you have to allow the public to speak, anyone. But let's say that you close the public hearing and you have further discussions, it's up to the commission whether or not you want to, someone says, I wanna speak, or there's,
Sure,
you know, that's just up to you.
right.
And there are different, you know, you can decide that as it goes.
Okay,
And you would reopen the public
Yeah, you
hearing
could reopen the public
and
hearing,
close it up again.
yeah, or just take public comment,
Okay.
you know, as part of that. Okay, and this was just, you have minutes, the minutes are very important because they are the official record. I think that has evolved a little bit now that we have everything online recorded. You know, if there was, anyway, but under state law, it's the minutes are the official record of the meeting, so.
And how long does the official recording need to be retained by the municipality?
I think it's definite,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, so all the audio ones were, they aren't, yeah, they're supposed to be indefinite. And I have to say, it's great, I mean, if you ever miss a meeting, whatever, you can go back or read the minutes.
How technology changes.
Yeah, they'll just.
Warehouses of data from the Uranus project that they can't read anymore because all the
Yeah, that's right.
technology switched.
Right,
Thanks.
yeah, the tapes, there are micro cassettes that are difficult to listen to. And I think, and this is something for you to comment on, I actually think staff does a fantastic job with your minutes in terms of making it readable, but also comprehensive. There's different places have different standards. Some places will just be like, there was a meeting and they talked about, you know, it's like 2 sentences and you don't really know what happens. As a lawyer, I find that really frustrating because I'm often trying to figure out what decisions were made or why they were made. And so if there is something in the minutes that you want to be in it, or you feel like it should be more comprehensive, less comprehensive, staff appreciates that feedback.
And I think there are certainly some minutes that are as summary as possible, and there are also some that are essentially a transcript. I think Park City, but I know that when I look at Park City Municipal Planning Commissioner or City Council minutes, they are massive. And my instinct, having done minutes and now working with Molly to do the minutes for this meeting, is to strike a balance.
Well, you're just correcting an AI version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, build a base with a couple applications and then tune it up.
I prefer that personally to ones that are very summary. They're, I mean, I won't name names, but it's basically used.
I like our scale, I think we're good
Yeah.
for scale.
But I just point that out, that if you ever feel like anything should be changed, let us know. Okay. You can have emergency meetings if something comes up. Really, all an emergency meeting means is that there's less than 24 hours notice. It's distinct from a special meeting. I don't think planning commission would have that come up, but council sometimes does.
Right.
Is that a chopping block?
Was that 2014 stipulation was being done, I think it was an emergency meeting.
Oh, okay.
So-
That could make sense, right? Yeah. And then lastly is just if you knowingly and intentionally violate, it's a class B misdemeanor that the attorney general will prosecute.
Unless you move for the state.
And then there's the training on the if you feel like getting a certificate or just wanna test that you were paying attention.
I just take an old one and scratch the date off.
Yeah. I mean, it literally takes 5 minutes it's a couple questions and you're like, okay, I know it, so. If you want a little positive reinforcement, you can do
I
that.
could use that once in a while.
And that's it. I don't know if there are other questions or.
Yeah, I have one on this. Use of the town email. Let's say Mary and I have a correspondence by email. She uses her town account. I use my personal account. Who's in jeopardy?
You are,
Okay, she is not.
right, because we have it. But what I have seen also, not just one, what I have seen is that. Like, there are some people that don't check their town emails very often,
Right.
they don't think to check it. So, in some of my other jurisdictions, there might be someone who I'll send an email to both their town email and their personal email.
Saying, check your town email.
Or not even, I just copy it
Oh,
because it's already in the town email. So, anything that's sent to the town email is also sent to the personal email. So it doesn't open up the personal email. But where you get in trouble is if it's only in your personal email and you're having a conversation and someone does a grammar request, then they're gonna say, well, I wanna make sure that Roger didn't send emails also to Rob.
And having been through that process, it's onerous.
I'll bet.
I can only imagine.
And I do not have a town email, that might be, cause I'm new.
If you'd like
so
one, we can get
I
you,
think that would be good, but
Yeah.
I'm using my work email, which is current.
right?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, we
We've
should,
had a mixed track record of the plan commission.
oh, okay, I highly recommend.
Okay.
It just, and you know, I think Alta. Even though this is a very small town, there aren't a lot of people that live here, it's a very important place. And the stakes are high, you know, it's high value, high beauty, high, you know, there's a lot going on here, so.
And a history of litigation.
Yes, and a history of litigation, so heeding to those type of just formalities, I think, can help you.
So we can set that up sometime.
Yes.
Like tomorrow, tonight. Okay, great.
I brought you over some.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you, I think this was always good, refresher, and
And also just remember too, you know, when people do a grammar request, they will also often ask for text messages.
Mhm.
So,
Man, that's gonna be interesting.
so those can be, you know, so town, a lot of, but I don't know if you have your own town phone number,
I don't.
some jurisdictions provide a phone for the mayor. You know, I think Molly right here has 2 phones.
Yeah.
Sticker block, this one says work. Yeah, so, but just be aware of that, you know, if you have, if you're texting with someone, you know, that could be discoverable. If it's just about meeting on Sunnyside tomorrow, you know, you can, that's fine, delete it, but you do have an obligation. Town information saved.
any questions, anybody?
Not on that.
All right, very good. Thanks again, item 6, any new business?
John Goldman.
Yeah. Day of the next meeting, we have that in March.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
well, the town meeting with everybody. Then I'm assuming, once that happens, there'll be some evaluation of what information
We'll see, month's a long time.
what's that?
A month
It's a long time.
We'll see what transpires.
Yeah, some synthesis of what we heard
Right.
that we.
And it should come relatively soon afterwards, so we don't
Right.
forget.
It depends on the timing of an open house meeting and whenever the next planning commission meeting is.
as a good consultant, John, you can like say, like in the next week, right?
Oh, yeah, well, I've got enough of these, it's,
Well,
gonna let them set it up. I was unfortunately, Michael, I was gonna ask as far as notifying. If he's not gonna wanna share his database now, but we don't wanna do that anyway, but that's up to,
I think we'll get the stakeholders we need the town ought to hear from via our channels.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
At the open house.
yeah. I hope so, I mean, we wanna, it's important, I think that we get the word out too.
Yeah, it sounds like you need enough time that you can,
Yeah.
I mean, you have the town newsletter, you have,
You know, in theory, here's an idea, speaking of the next meeting and how we get the information. Let me look at so we're scheduled,
26th is the,
again, the 26th, okay. Maybe we push them to do the Monday, maybe the Monday evening before, or the Monday before our Wednesday meeting. And then we can recap what we heard on the Wednesday, is that too crazy?
I don't think that's great.
Let's start. It's tight,
Time for them to get it together, or time for us to sit to
it
absorb?
depends, maybe it depends on whose responsibility that is to compile the input.
Right.
Not ours,
Um,
in my opinion.
Well,
Needs to be
let's think
verified.
about that for a moment. If the input is compiled by the proponent, it potentially has a slant to it.
The bias.
Yeah.
Well, is this a co-hosted meeting then?
I think it should be.
Okay, all right, so it's a town meeting. Hosting a discussion about this potential.
yeah, I'm open to that, I mean, we wouldn't have to notice it.
you would, well, yeah, of course you would notice it,
Yeah.
but you would,
Body, what public body is it?
well, it's who, I mean, if there's gonna be a quorum of the council, you would notice it for both the council and the planning commission.
Well,
And then,
I mean, it's open house, it's obviously noticed by, inviting everybody.
Well, right.
But there's still
Yes,
specific.
somebody has to own it.
The state.
Put it on the state
Public
website,
notice.
and we gotta do it in a certain period of time and.
well, it's 24 hours, it's not
Yeah,
that onerous.
That's not bad.
I would suggest that you err on the side of
Sure.
just noticing it. The hard thing for those open houses is you're not gonna take minutes, right? You can't record it because there's different stations. But so it is nice to, it's going to be noticed as an open house, it's not a meeting with an agenda.
Well, I think back to the question, how we would understand what the sentiment is. I think we could do it very simple, like 3 questions, not even requires writing, but circles as far as their thoughts on their trade-off, as I brought up earlier. What do you, maybe on a Likert scale of something 1 to 5, you support, which one do you support? As far as the trade-offs, things like that, in terms of the 10 versus the 1. And that would be our information. As you leave, do a quick half a piece of paper.
But you're gonna have, these guys are all gonna be there selling.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, well,
So, I mean, are we there? Listen, we're just listening.
Can they ask us questions and have dialogue with us?
They,
Yeah.
Or public?
I think so, if it's our meeting, yeah, we're hosting it, officially hosting it.
Yeah, I think so, and I think, what I've seen in other places too is, at your next meeting, you report and you say, well, I went to this meeting, these issues were brought up. Here are some things that resonated with me, I mean, it's not even if everyone, it's a rezone is a legislative decision. You're just making a recommendation, but it is a legislative decision,
Yeah.
so, hearing getting a pulse on where the public is.
As far as the bias of the selling, I understand that, we could ask or request that somebody vets the boards, that the visuals. To make sure it's like, hey, this is the greatest condo project,
I mean, I think it's I mean, we've seen everything, they're not
Yeah.
gonna come up with you. It's already been presented.
Yeah, I don't,
Right.
I'm not really concerned about a sales job, to be honest, too much, because we're, I plan on being there wherever it is, whenever it is. And I assume Dave as well. So I think we have a certain degree of trust.
Okay, so but back, and I'm still getting back to the timing of this. What do we need? We need 3 weeks to get the notice out or 2 weeks? And if it's 2 weeks, whatever date we decide on, then we have to have. Well, the information gets organized by staff?
Yeah.
No?
Well,
Yes.
yeah,
And then we have to schedule a meeting where we
Chris
Check
is
it all
out there
out.
with one of those boards.
Sandwich board, those are illegal in Alta.
Are they? No. Illegal just for you or just having to work?
My employment contract does not allow me to do that, and it's only ordinance, not.
We'll also need to work around the OLS schedule if that's the intended
Right.
place, because they have yoga on Mondays, at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Tuesday,
So,
Thursday events typically, right?
generally, so it may get a little tight.
Like almost every week.
Yes. And I think in terms of timing, if there are members of the public that are skiing or working at the resort, you know, having that 2-3 hour window makes makes sense though, right? That people don't wanna wait till 7 o'clock, I mean,
4 to 6.
Yeah, 4 to 6.
Yes.
Or maybe 4 to 6:30. Something like that. You know, maybe it's an opportunity to wait out the red snake.
Right. It might not hurt to do it on a weekend, honestly, get more.
It's an interesting idea.
I think you're gonna scare people.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean scare them?
Well, certain time, we have to go 5 to 7 on a Saturday, I'm not coming.
Okay.
Whereas a midweek, I mean, of course I'll come, whatever it is, but, I've already spent my night in the snake this winter, so I'm trying to avoid a second one, and I think if it's midweek. We're getting towards the tail end of the season. You know, I can't see congestion lingering much past 6:30 on a weeknight, even on a big snow night. But I think that sounds safe to me, and like I said, I think if we have enough time, I think this is a hot enough topic, we're gonna get. Then we need to hear from like a volume of people, it'd be great to hear from lots of folks, but it would. To me, it'd be really important to hear from certain people and certain stakeholders. I think that's just going to give the outcome credibility, and I think if we give folks 2 weeks, it's a hot enough topic that folks will.
I think
Well,
it's-
be aware too, that. What you're talking about is open house, but you are also going to have a public
Sure, here.
hearing, so.
But it's a couple days later.
Well, you guys will decide that, I think you're gonna make it a little bit more, right? You wanna
Hearing
check.
would be this month of March,
It didn't sound like that's what they were suggesting.
No, I mean, what we're gonna do in the order of the open house and then a public hearing sometime later.
yeah, sometime,
Yeah.
Okay,
But is the public hearing before the planning commission makes a recommendation to the council
It's usually the same meeting,
about forwarding,
right? You are permitted to have, I mean, you could do two meetings, right? You could have one public hearing and then continue it.
right?
Are you saying you can have a public hearing and then take action in a future meeting?
Because Wade seems to be on a.
Yeah, he wants to-
tight time.
I'll have to double check the code, and the code's changed, but I don't think that there's a requirement for a rezone that you have to make a decision the first.
And Maren, do you know, is Wednesday night available or?
It generally is.
It looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Snowflake Festival is all the week of March 24th,
Right.
including the 26th, so. Be a chili cook-off or disco on Wednesday, but it's not specified in the calendar, otherwise the Wednesdays do look free.
disco versus a meeting, a public meeting,
Because we also, there could be other entities, like, I don't know.
With the chili cook-off.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
How much
Well, I
less, so it
think,
could be other
right, you know, there
people.
could be other things.
Yeah,
going on in the
yeah.
future, So.
So maybe this,
How
I'm
about-
gonna check that week of the 20.
Yeah, the critical item here is the availability of OLS, because I think that's the only sensible place.
I'll send
to
an
put it.
email right now.
Okay.
If it's not available, I don't see this being the worst place to have something like that either, but.
No,
Not the best.
This is a big topic.
Yeah.
You need to invite lots of people, and I think to show out will be much more than you think.
Okay,
well, I'm hoping that's the case.
so to be clear, we're talking about an open house in 2 weeks. Is that what we're talking about?
No,
We're
no,
going 3.
no, the third week, the same week that we have a planning commission, a month away,
Okay,
in theory, ideally.
But then when there's your next planning commission?
26th.
The 26th is Wednesday.
Is that
So we're
one,
looking for the 24th.
I mean, I've been through a lot, I was thinking Monday the 24th, unless it's not available, and follow up with a meeting the 26th, that's fresh on our minds, we're gonna remember what we heard, what we talked about with all the constituents, and we have a very healthy discussion a couple of days later, that's just me being.
that makes
in the
sense to me.
abstract. So, but if
I
it's
know
not.
OLS is not available Monday evenings,
OLS is not available.
That's
Monday.
what-
good for you, right?
yeah, 5:30 to 6:30. So we could do it later, or?
I mean, the week before
Maybe
is
just
the
require
19th.
yoga here.
Yeah, put
What's
yoga
that?
here.
Just require them, you're gonna participate, bring your yoga mat.
I'll inquire about all less availability the last 2 full weeks of March.
I was just thinking that we did fairly close together in March, then we have, again, it's fresh in our minds, we talked about it on the 26th. Here's what we heard, here's the summary, here's what the responses were in terms of the survey or whatever it is we have them fill out. And
That
And again,
makes
it
sense.
is possible for you to have a special, you can move your regular.
that's what I'm thinking too, if we need to have it on the meeting on the 26th, we could always slide our planning commission a day or a week.
Mhm.
For the Thursday next, that would be too tight.
So we gotta find out what night we can plan, we can have it.
Yeah,
It sounds like it's.
the crucial item here is OLS availability.
Yes.
Make sure it's not on St. Patrick's Day.
My birthday's the next day, that's the day I'm concerned about everything.
We're gonna split for the 20th, like the Thursday before.
Yeah.
Work.
Snow fitness, yeah, gold letters yoga room, that's it, Gold letters, so.
So the 20th can possibly work it out, lady?
Well, I'll just
We'll
reach
inquire,
out.
but I think
Okay, okay,
Yeah, why don't you get a few dates and then make sure
Yeah.
that planning commissioners are.
I'm happy to help with
Have to go to our dentist on that thing.
all right. Healthy discussion, thank you, everybody. Subpoena the next meeting is somewhat in pencil, but it's to be determined. With that. Gosh, it's staying light so late lately, that's so nice, motion to adjourn. Made. Second,
Second.
all right,
I can
let's
go.
do it,
We're done?
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna plug the owl.
Yeah, you're good with that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Thanks, Goldner.
Do it just by
Molly,
saying.
I'll give you this.